Hello and welcome back to Whovian Espresso and another day, another Doctor Who custom figure, and here we have the wonderful Yeti that I made along with Alpha Centauri. I made them on back-to-back days. I made Alpha Centauri one day and then I made this. I've always wanted a Yeti figure. I've always thought they were one of the most memorable monsters from the 60s era, the early 60s, and I'm gutted that the Abominable Snowman hasn't been animated yet, because I think it makes such a great animation. I think it would be far more popular than the Faceless ones, but I mean the Faceless ones is pretty popular for some reason. The Steelbook sold out very quickly, which was unusual given that the Macroterra one took a while to sell out. But this one is an interesting one because there was originally going to be a Yeti figure. It was just, I can't remember, I think there was some licensing issue because the picture leaked or something like that. Which is a shame because the Yeti makes for such a wonderful figure, and I mean, although like this is a custom figure and doesn't really work, isn't as good. Oh, sorry, his hand fell off there. He's got a swappable hand, which I'll come to in a minute. And although like this is a custom figure, I think I could see just from this custom figure that I've made how easy it would be to make a fantastic figure of it. This figure is based on the Web of Fear, which is obviously the only Yeti story that I've actually seen. There is a slight variant from the Abominable Snowman, which I was looking at, maybe doing another one, you never know. But this is the one I personally associate with the Yeti because it's the one I've seen on screen. As you can see, I've used a dark brown wash because I don't really know the colouring. I know there are a couple of colour photographs circulating, but I didn't really know what colour to use. The back of it is a bit odd. I remember my parents noting that it looked rather phallic, but I mean, you know. But as you can see, I've tried to detail in lots of different sort of fur dents with my sculpting knife. You got the yellow eyes, and you got the fluff thing, which obviously hides the controller for the Yeti in the episode. As I said, there are swappable hands here, so this is a regular Yeti claw there. But I also made one with a rather badly sculpted web gun from the episode, which also slots in there. One thing I didn't mention with the Alpha Centauri one is there's no articulation, obviously, but because this is that just fell over there. Because this is I think I put that in the wrong way. No? Have I put it in the wrong way? No, it's just a bit wobbly. The one thing you can say about having the swappable one is it can slightly be posed inside, so you could have some slightly different things there. But one thing I will say again before I get into it, I've had to before I get into how I made it, just like I did with the Alpha Centauri, the base here is very hard to get to stand up because the way I made it. It's quite a solid figure actually. I'm quite surprised how solid it is. You can tell that it's slightly hard. You have to make a base, which sort of ruins the back of the figure, but I mean it's alright. I've blacked out his mouth because there was you could slightly see the mouth on the pictures that I saw. And obviously the hips are quite wide because it's a Yeti. But I'm going to go on to how I made this figure. We are at the first stage. This is another loo roll based figure, I guess, because basically it makes a good base and you can sort of mould around it easily. I filled this with polystyrene, which I got from an order, just to give the inside wasn't hollow, just so it would have a better chance of standing upright, although I had to make a base, kind of base to make it stand up, but I also put tape on the top so obviously the polystyrene wouldn't leak out. But that was basically what I used on the inside of the figure. Step 2 requires a knife, and because I am a family-friendly person, I am not going to advise that you use a knife without your parents' permission, because, you know, I don't want to get in trouble. But yeah, so do not use a knife without a parent's permission or supervision. If you're old enough to use a knife, then yeah, you. But but yeah, so I used a knife to cut some polystyrene out to make the base for the leg, because again, milliput is expensive and I didn't want to make an entire foot out of milliput. But that's basically what I used as a base, and I stuck that to the bottom of the toilet roll. Here you can see I've started to add the milliput around the legs, and sort of added some a bit of carving in there to give you the lines of the fur. We've also got there the beginning of the feet claws there. I go into a bit more depth about how I got the different bits of milliput to sort of mould around into that Yeti shape in the next photo. So as you can see, I've got these strips of milliput. I've sort of rolled them out, and then I've attached them like in a triangle sort of roof-like shape over the legs, sort of encompassing that little crotch area to fill that gap up, so you can't see the loo roll there. I've also flattened them out so that, again, I don't have to use so much milliput, but I've also sort of sculpted them again, as I mentioned, the fur into that, but making sure that it's flat and evened out. So here we have the completed sort of toilet roll, completely sculpted, all of the milliput onto there. It's not sculpted in the fur yet, but that is what it will look like once you've got all the milliput right up to the top. Here, as you can see, is where I've sculpted the claw, the spare claw arm without the gun, and also the claw arm with the gun, which isn't a great sculpt, I'll admit, but it does the job, I think, nicely. We also have there a Yeti sort of, I don't know what they were, but they were sort of like trackers or something, like communication units or whatever, and they were just silver balls. I just remember that scene from The Web of Fear where one crashes in the window at the start of the story. I remember that and thought I might as well make it since I've got a bit of milliput left over. Again, it's optional if you want to have like swappable hands or anything. I just thought it'd be nice because character would never do that. So yeah, I just thought I'd try with the swappable hands, and I think it worked out somewhat well. I mean, the gun isn't the greatest sculpt, but I think it works as what it is. So here you can see I've sculpted in the fur detailing on the toilet roll, the Yeti body here. I've also sort of added a bit of, I don't know if you can see in the photograph, but I've added a bit of milliput to the sides. You will definitely see in the final photograph I've added some milliput to the sides to sort of bring the hips out a bit like they are in the story. They're a lot fatter in the story, I won't lie. This one's a bit of a slim, sleek Yeti, I guess, but I just wanted to try and emphasise some of that Yeti sort of shape / silhouette that you see in the story here. But yeah, that's what I've sort of done to try and accentuate those hips. So in this photograph you can see I've started to make the head here. This was a pinch pot that I made out of milliput, but you can't really go very far with a pinch pot with milliput, mainly because it starts to crumble away. So I had to make sort of a top bit, the bit of milliput, be a pinch pot, and then on the bottom, like on the top of it, like at the very bottom, the base of the head, there, that is actually a coil of milliput which I had to cut out and roll out, and then I put that along just to make the head a bit taller, make it look a bit more monstrous, I guess, but just to make the head look a bit bigger because it wasn't looking quite natural the way it was with just the sort of short pinch pot there. Here you can see this is the finished milliput sculpt. I've added some eyes there. I've also added a bit of a strip above the eyes and for the nose, just to make that face sort of pop out of the face. I mean, the head, sorry. I've also added a mouth here. There isn't actually a mouth, I don't think, on the Abominable Snowman one. Neither does the Abominable Snowman one have any eyes. I don't know, it might have one eye. There's sort of this area, and I remember when I saw the original prop that's sort of in tatters, they sort of had this hole where an eye would be, I guess, but I don't know if there was an eye in the original prop, but the prop definitely had changed. There's two different variants of this costume from the episodes, so I'm interested to see the origin of that and why they sort of updated it. But I mean, it was only like, I swear the Abominable Snowman happened, and then it was just a couple of stories later, the Web of Fear. I think it was like maybe 3. I know the Enemy of the World comes in between, but I don't think there's that many stories between the Abominable Snowman and the Web of Fear, so they must have had the costumes still. Especially given that the Abominable Snowman variant of the Yeti is still seen in a photo shoot with John Pertwee, so I don't know what was going on with that, but I guess we'll see. We probably won't see, I don't know. Well, I'll never know the origin. I'm sure someone knows, but if you do know, let me know in the comments, I guess. So here is the Yeti with just standard claw here, fully painted in its dark brown wash. Now, there aren't many coloured pictures of the Yeti, so I didn't really know what type of tones to use. So I decided I'd go with a slightly lighter base, well, a slightly darker base, and then a slightly lighter case, and then dark again. I don't think it really came out. Maybe I should have done dark, maybe I should have done light, then dark, I don't know. There's definitely lots of different ways you could have painted this. I mean, if I was doing an Abominable Snowman version, I'd definitely have light on first, and then do that darker outline, the sort of like this weird sort of shape on the face of the Yeti from the Abominable Snowman. I don't quite know the origin of that either, but it's there. That's just a detail in the costume, I don't know. Then here is the Yeti with the gun, the Yeti sort of web gun from the episode. I remember that they sort of had this sort of tunnel thing, and there was this goo going through this tunnel, and there was a web, and they covered like all the humans in webs. But I thought it was a nice addition, and I thought it'd be nice and easy to have the reversible claw, so I'm quite happy with how it turned out there as well. So overall, if I was to do this figure again, I would definitely want to try and make the figure a lot fatter, a lot broader, sort of make the figure look more accurate in size to the actual prop. And particularly, there's another figure that I've recently made that is much taller than another character, and it doesn't quite work because they're about the same size. So that's going to probably be a recurring thing, is the scale, I think, of my customs aren't going to quite be right. I don't know if there's anything I can necessarily do about that, particularly because milliput is expensive, and I just can't afford to make full figures out of milliput, so it's going to be basically a toilet roll base for most of these figures. But I mean, when I have a figure base, and I have got a custom that I've recently made that I've used a figure base, which I might do a video on, we'll see. I don't really have many pictures of making that, so it might be more of a showcase and less of a tutorial than these ones have been. But it's a relatively easy custom to do, to be honest, I found. But this, I think, could maybe have benefited from being the Abominable Snowman variant, maybe, because that's probably a bit less detail, and I don't know, it just seems like it would have been easier to paint, maybe. I definitely want to try and do the sculpting details again, because as I was like painting it, or as I was sculpting other bits of it, you'd see that the outlines that I sculpted out would sort of like fade away, and you wouldn't be able to see that detail anymore. But also because it's so thin, the detail can't dig so deep as well. And also I think just scraping in bits is not necessarily the greatest way to replicate fur. I mean, it is a way, but I think there are better ways, is what I mean. But yeah, overall, I quite like this figure. I think it's quite a nice replacement for it, given that we're probably never going to get a character options variant. I'd love to try it, as I said before, I'd love to try and make an Abominable Snowman variant, or maybe do one in grayscale, because I really love the grayscale Doctor Who figures. I wished we got more of them. It's such a shame that those San Diego Comic-Con's exclusive ones. One thing I really want the B&M range to do is a grayscale TARDIS, because I think that would be such a great figure. And I mean even if we just got a grayscale variant of the First Doctor, or a grayscale pack with, like, I don't know, a First Doctor and Dalek, that would be great. I'd love to see a grayscale version of that again. You could just do re-releases of those sets. I mean, there would be people who get mad because it's a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, but I mean, they were willing to redo the Peter Davison figure with that San Diego Comic-Con exclusive like body, which obviously has that paint, but I mean, it's slightly different because it's a Peter Davison figure. But yeah, I'd love to see more grayscale figures, so I may well make a grayscale custom. But yeah, overall, I think there's somewhat of a charm to it, even if it doesn't look threatening and does just look a bit like a tree. But I mean, what can I do? This is my second custom, so I'm quite proud of it. Particularly as one that's the first sort of big custom figure that I've ever made, so I'm quite happy with it overall. So yeah, if you like this video, please leave a like or comment down below. Subscribe if you want updates on upcoming content and custom videos, and see you next time. Bye!